Well, thanks for joining us, Adam.
No problem.
Really
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you giving us your time. But Adam Irwin, managing partner at Pitcher Partners Sydney.
Yep.
In the top 10 lists of accountancies in Australia.
Yep.
So that's fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about Pitcher Partners
Sure.
and your journey, which has been a long one?
Been a long one.
With the organisation?
Yeah, so look, as you said, we're in the top 10. We're sort of the accounting assurance advisory business. We've been around for a while, albeit come about because of mergers and the like, but certainly, we've been around for a while. Very strong in Sydney CBD, and the practice continues to go from strength to strength and grow. So, in terms of my journey, I've been here nearly 20 years at the end of the year. So started off with what was Moore Stevens, and we merged about 6 years ago to become Pitcher Partners in Sydney. So the firm was definitely a lot smaller when I started. There was a lot fewer people around. I was kind of everything from receptionist to payroll person to accounts person, and now I just have people to do that for me, which is great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember when we first put iManage in at Moore Stevens, having you directly working with us on that project and making design decisions and look at you now.
Now it's someone else's problem, which is good.
Yeah,
so
definitely. That's great. Well, you've got a lot of positive things to say about Pitcher Partners, which is awesome. But can you tell us, what's the worst thing about working with accountants?
I think you summed it up in that one word, didn't you? Accountant. I think the problem with accountants is they can be quite conservative by nature. So you probably have to spend a lot more time than you'd like. Educating up front, selling the why this is in their benefits piece, and before you even embark on thinking about changing stuff. So that transition piece can be a lot longer than you'd probably hope it would be. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Also, another blast from the past, but I wanted to know a little bit about your homebrew beer project, and that's quite a while ago since I think you started that. How's it going?
Quite a while. It's kind of on hold at the moment, which is terrible to say. Long story, but I don't have the space at the moment. But we've just bought a block of land, so we bought just over an acre of land down Southern Highlands.
Wow.
And it will have its own detached brewery for me as part of the build. So
that's turned from homebrew to microbrewery.
Indeed. So
I sense a retirement plan.
Well, maybe. I don't know anyone makes money from brewing beer though, so maybe you do. Some of the bigger guys tend to, but certainly it's just one of those hobby things.
Yeah.
So
So if you've got that on pause, where does that put you with the Pitcher Partners Beer Club?
Pitcher Partners Beer Club still continues. We still do it every month.
Okay.
And it's 30 or 40 people each month getting together, having a chat and having a couple of beers, which is great.
That's such a great idea. Did you start that up for Pitchers?
We started it up.
Yeah.
I think it must be 5-6 years ago now.
Okay.
And it was just one of those things of getting people to, it was relatively new after the merger, so it was a chance to get people together and have a chat that maybe didn't know each other. And I think it's always easier over a beer or two, isn't it? So,
definitely. And that's great that you could bring sort of one of your personal passions into your business.
Yeah, for sure. And look, we've used it. We've used it for fundraising down the track. We've taken people out to meet. We've got a client in that business, so we've been out to their place, and it's just been great at sort of bringing people through the practice. So
wow, fantastic! Love it. All right. So, Adam, you recently participated in a fundraising initiative with Ronald McDonald House. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Yeah,
the whole premise of that is to sort of give you the experience of what a family would go through with a sick kid. So it's sort of 24 hours within the house, getting to know some of the families there, but also you're provided with a scenario that they sort of follow the whole way through, and you learn a little bit more about the illness that the child had and what it's potentially like for the family. So it's the second year running I've done it, and it's a great opportunity to raise money and awareness for the house. So really good. Back end, great group of people do it as well. So some good networking opportunities and all that come hand in hand with it as well. So
and how does that come about? Do you get approached by Ronald McDonald House, or was Pitcher Partners looking for something to be part of?
No, it's an interesting one. We 4 or 5 years ago started doing some work with Ronald McDonald House. They asked us to help them out with some some strategy, IT strategy work. And I sort of have done bits and pieces for them along the way. I sit on their IT council, and was kind of looking for an opportunity to give back. And our marketing director actually saw it on social media and said, "You should give this a crack and
That's great.
and become part of it." So, and look, it's it's been a great experience, and it's something I very much enjoy doing. The back end of that is anybody that's been through that program's now part of an advisory council, and we get together every quarter and chat about some of their challenges and how we can potentially help them out. So it's become really good. So.
Oh, it's really exciting, and kudos to you, mate. You've made it very close to the top of the CEO leaderboard.
I've been pipped 2 years running, so I'm not particularly happy about that. The guys. One of the good things about it was a good opportunity to get the whole team involved, and so my guys get really precious about staying at the top of the leaderboard. But it's all about raising money for them at the end of the day. So,
definitely, and mate, I really appreciate you letting OIA be a part of that too. So thank you. Very good. On to some slightly more serious stuff here, but it doesn't all have to be serious, mate.
Yep.
So what do you see as the current trends at the moment in sort of accountancy and advisory? What do you see as the current trends in accounting and advisory services, probably this year?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of businesses, we're struggling for people. So I think technology that allows us to potentially allow people to focus on the more value-add stuff and potentially take away some of the more routine or not mundane's not the right word, but that sort of stuff that they have to do day in and day out. So I think a lot of automation tools, every simple things from sort of providing reporting data on a regular basis to actually replacing people in some of the processes, I think is becoming quite key, and it's quite front of mind. Albeit, like a lot of things, I think people are still trying to get their head around what it actually means, and I can see plenty of missed opportunities along the way till people get there. So.
Yeah. And are you finding that the change in the working environment's giving you guys the opportunity to maybe look at resourcing or recruiting from places you wouldn't normally think of?
Yes and no. We touched on that accountant piece before. Accountants still tend to like people that have gone through the typical accounting path, but it does mean it's easier to consider people that can only commit part-time or need a little bit more flexibility. It certainly means that whereas in the past we had traditional offshore resources that were dedicated and working to us, now they can be virtual resources pretty well anywhere in the world. So it's changed the focus, albeit that we probably still look to recruit the same sort of people as we were previously. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit of flexibility, but you're still sort of holding true to your core values.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think being a business that's driven by the partners tend to like people that have come through the same path as them for the most part. So, we tend to end up pulling from the same pools.
Interesting. Yeah, we're going through a similar experience at the moment, and I'm having that same thing.
Yep.
I'm looking for new recruits who have come up the way I have, but I'm being schooled at the moment about, they don't have to have been sticking screwdrivers in servers to be working in an IT consultancy job anymore. So it's certainly opened my eyes as well, that's for sure.
One of the interesting things I did find, though, through COVID and the whole working from home is, I was mentioning before that it takes us a long time to convert from an idea to a reality, whereas we found that process has gotten quicker for us. We deployed teams, for example, 2 months into COVID and didn't have a whimper from anybody, whereas if we had have done it here, it would have been a 6-month exercise. So I think the challenge is on us is still to get the wording right and how we present it, but I think there are opportunities to change how we go about doing business in some instances. So.
Interesting, yeah. Accelerating change, but still requiring quite a bit of change management.
Indeed.
Certainly not going back to the cowboy days of just making IT changes without
No. And if anything, it's funny, people really notice if a feature that was there has suddenly disappeared or is in a different spot. So, as we all move to kind of SaaS type environments where that potentially happens, it's there today and not there tomorrow, it actually causes a new raft of different problems for us.
Yeah, interesting. We saw that when our customers, like yourselves, not yet, but moved to iManage Cloud.
Yep.
And in the very early days of iManage Cloud, there were some significant changes that came through updates,
Yep.
and being traditionally on-prem,
Yep. very
change averse and controlled, we were really stressing out about what the impact
Yep.
was going to have, but people accepted it pretty well.
Yep. I mean, it's an interesting. I mentioned we did some consulting work, and I think you've still got some people that are in that. I bought the software in a box off the shelf, and it doesn't change until I want it to change. You've still got some people in that mould, but that's obviously changing with the generations as well. So
sure.
People are happy that Facebook changes. Oh, maybe they're not happy that Facebook changes, but they live with it, don't they? So.
That's very true. We try to use some of those examples, but they're not drawn too many parallels between Facebook and iManage, hopefully. So it's been a fairly uncertain and very extraordinary, couple of years for all businesses, all organisations. And what do you reckon has been the most sort of unexpected impact you've had to deal with? Like, is there anything that's just completely blown your mind that's happened in the last couple of years?
It's astonishing that not a lot has changed. We kind of were able to push people to work from home, and we didn't see any major disruptions and any major changes. I think the one thing for me that I find myself reflecting on a lot is that people are incredibly honest with us now, whereas maybe they weren't so much pre-COVID. We use some technology to pulse people and see how they're going, and ask for sort of weekly some general questions. And from day one of pushing that out, the responses and the honesty that was coming back was amazing. So the onus is on us now to do something with it and actually respond to it properly. So, and I think that's, as a business, the whole focus on well-being and that people are doing okay will be the biggest change that comes out of it for us.
Okay.
I think we were pretty good at it beforehand. But, we're certainly trying to up our game in that department, as I think most businesses are going to have to going forward as well. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean, that's something that's blown my mind, and similar to what you're saying there, is that communication both ways between customers, vendors, and within businesses has improved with remoteness. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, I think this was unique, unlike anything else, that we're all impacted pretty much the same. So if you were calling somebody and saying, look, we've got to delay it because we don't have people, chances are they're experiencing exactly the same thing. So I think there's a fair amount of camaraderie that's come about with that. So people are understanding, and I think people appreciate, well, if I just tell you what's going on, chances are we can figure out how we're going to deal with it together. So,
and I really hope that's something that we can continue and,
sure.
and keep hold of, and I'm certainly trying to take that on.
Yeah, for sure. And some interesting stuff too. I mean, it was 5 or 6 years ago I got to go to Harvard for a week, and it was a big deal. And you're on flights to the other side of the world to sit in a classroom for 7 days. Well, now you can do it all online. Yeah. So, there's some significant shifts there that will hopefully mean I can give 10 people that Harvard experience now rather than just one person. So I think some of that, there's some real great benefits that have come out of the back of it. So
that's fantastic. Love it. All right, so Adam, how do you see sort of digital transformation? Well, that's what we're calling it these days, so information management. How's it impacting your firm and its abilities for the firm to achieve its business objectives?
I think there's a couple of things that are key to that. I think most of our clients now expect us available 24/7. I think those days of office hours or whatever are long gone. We've already talked about the fact we've got people working remotely and the like. So we've got to have access to our information as quickly as we possibly can. It's got to be available on various devices and the like. But we've also got to be conscious of the data security issues that come hand in hand with it. So for us, the digital transformation piece is about getting people access to information when they need to, wherever they happen to be, and making sure that's done as securely as possible. It's about connecting disparate systems. It's about bringing those together, ideally having single sources of truth and all those nice things that we kind of talk about. So, we're very focused as a business on having the right tools to do the right jobs, connect them together, and then ideally kind of make the processes either incredibly streamlined or potentially use automation and the like to make them happen. So
yeah, very true. And that's there's been a lot of internal innovation I've noticed within Pitcher Partners, under your direction over the last 10 to 20 years, where connecting those systems has been really important to you, and you guys have invested time and money and consulting and stuff. So not just about iManage, but can you tell us a bit about some of the digital solutions that you partner with us on?
Sure. And
perhaps other things that are helping you to drive those business objectives as well.
Yeah, look, I think as an overarching principle, as I said, accountants can be a little conservative in how they operate, and I think a lot of accountants have sat back and waited for some of the software vendors to take the lead, and I think the reality is I don't think the business model necessarily supports that. So we've certainly looked at what we've got, and as I said, I think we've focused on that best of breed concept, making sure we've got the right tool to do the right job, and then think about how we integrate that with other bits and pieces. So when we talk about iManage, fit for purpose being the document management and security piece, but how do we then take documents out of there, share them with people? How do we make sure that documents are being accessed by the right person? How do we kind of use some of your workflow tools and the like to make sure that we're automating the delivery piece that goes hand in hand with those? So probably 4 or 5 years ago, we committed to putting in a proper CRM tool.
Yep.
We were sort of struggling with the practice management solution we had. We said, well, look, this is what we need. We've made that very much our central source of truth, and use that to both deliver and receive our client content. So, and certainly connecting that to iManage, using that to give visibility to documents was pretty key and was pretty an important piece in that puzzle. I think the other piece that goes hand in hand with it is we need to be making sure we're delivering our content in a process manner.
Yeah.
And so the workflow tools and that, once again, coming back to them, are quite key and pivotal to that. Okay. They support the way as a business we operate. We've got a hierarchy there and we want things pushed through the various levels. So they really support what we try to do in that space.
Okay,
so
that's fantastic. Yeah, again, you guys were really on the front foot with business process automation in the fields. Professional services have generally been quite slow to uptake that kind of stuff, so you guys are well ahead of the game. And it's been great to be a part of that with you guys as well.
I think the other thing that's been good that I've really appreciated over a number of years now is building up those strong relationships with vendors where I can just kind of come up with an idea and say, figure it out. Yeah. So, I know for you guys there was an application where we wanted to work with yourselves and a competitor, and said we need you to get in the room and kind of make it happen, and you're able to do it. So that fact about I'm not the most technical person of coming up with an idea, putting it up on a whiteboard and saying to somebody else, go and make it happen, I think is the piece that we've really appreciated in the relationship along the way. So when we've kind of pushed a little bit on some of this stuff, it's only been possible because we've had the right vendors to help us out at the end of the day. Okay. So
yeah, I appreciate that, and it's been really exciting actually to be challenged with some of these things. And we've always taken the approach to work with our customers on their outcomes rather than our other sort of backroom feelings or dirty laundry you might have with other vendors, etc. But that's good. Just this is an off the cuff question, but sure. You guys, as I said, have spent a lot of time and effort integrating a number of these solutions, best of breed pieces, to have an overall platform that hums along for Pitcher Partners. Do you ever get any sort of feedback or pushback from the partnership around, why can't we just have one product that does all of this and it's all integrated and all looks the same and we just pay one bill?
Yes and no. I think I'm quite privileged in that most of my partners will just say, you know what you're doing, go and do it. I think they also, most of them appreciate the fact that they're maybe not the most technically savvy, and therefore they do understand the fact that we've got to use different bits and pieces to do different things. Having said that, though, a lot of what we are trying to do is to make it so that they don't actually need to know what the underlying platforms are. And I think that's the beauty of some of the automation stuff, is that we could potentially have all these steps along the way, and they just don't need to know about it. They kind of know what they do up front and what the outcomes are, and as long as they get there, they're pretty happy with it. So, we've probably got more things in our tech stack than I'd like to have, but at the end of the day, they're all there with a purpose. So, okay. I think it makes sense.
So like as the technology leader in the business, what stopped you from sort of looking at the product set, saying, okay, we need workflow, we need file sharing, we need digital signatures. iManage is awesome. This other piece is great, but maybe I should go and look at another product that does it all. What stopped you from going down that path?
I think it's that jack of all trades piece. I do think that you kind of see vendors get to a point and then think, well, we've got to add more to it, and you end up with that more not being particularly well thought out or not necessarily aligned with what we need to do. So I think the beauty of being able to connect and automate stuff means that you can have multiple providers, you can have multiple platforms, have the best piece to do that particular task, and focus on that rather than focusing on having one particular vendor.
Yeah, I guess in those all-in-one solutions, often you just have to deal with what you've got rather than being able to say, I just wish it could do.
And 100%. I mean, and certainly when I started, we came from a practice management solution that tried to be all things to all men, and the reality was, there's just not the business case, I don't think, in Australia, let alone perhaps even broader than that, to justify the expense on all of those things. So, getting a proper CRM tool that we know does CRM really well, and connecting it with the time and billing system was exactly the right outcome for us.
So. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, very interesting, and kudos again to you guys for making that happen, because it's uncommon actually.
Yeah, and it's been it's certainly been a bit of fun along the way. We've made plenty of mistakes, but we've also got to a pretty good position, I think, where we can also test the market. We can look at other applications out there, and we know we can slot them in without too much trouble and without disrupting, the majority of the business at the end of the day, which is pretty key.
So it sounds like you've got a bit of a, try things, fail fast, learn from it, move on type of ethos. Sure. So you take that approach to the technology. Is that something that's sort of pervasive throughout the entire business, or is that just in the technology area?
It's probably more in the technology area, albeit we're trying to kind of get that ethos to move across the rest of the practice. So we're trying to leverage that thinking to make people a little bit more innovative and look at different ways of doing things. So, and I think the beauty is, as I mentioned, resourcing's tough at the moment. So people become a little bit more mindful of, well, is there a lot of value in what I'm doing, or is there a better way of doing it? So, hopefully over time we will see that become a change of ethos there along the way. So,
wow, yeah, that sounds exciting. I like, So, Adam, your firm's been a long time user of the iManage platform.
Yep.
My memory serves me correctly, it's around about 14 years.
Sounds about right. Yep.
So, how have you found that journey throughout the entire time?
Look, I think it's been for the most part, it's been a good journey. I think whenever I'm asked about it, I think the iManage platform is one of those things that does what it says on the box at the end of the day. So I think when it comes to document management and the security and auditing piece around that, I don't think there's anything that certainly for us would compare. There's been some interesting challenges, and there's probably been some stuff that I'd like a better solution on, but they're the fringe pieces as around that core product. And as I said, we're very focused on getting the right core fit for purpose product, and then if we need to, finding something else to kind of fill in the gaps, if you like.
To OIA as the partner for iManage, is there anything then in our relationship over the years you think we could improve or we could do better?
No, look, I think it's like a lot of things, our relationships evolved over time. I mean, I think when we first started working with you guys, it was very much, let's get the product in and installed and up and running. And then over time, that's changed to be, how do we make the most out of the product? As I said, I think the thing that I really appreciate about the relationship now is just being able to throw things at you. We kind of know that iManage is just going to continue to operate. We know you're going to be there to support it. it's about, all right, this is what we're thinking of. How do we make it work? So, we had a recent instance, can't say the word, instance where we got you involved with one of the guys we work with in the UK.
Yep.
And it was part of solving a problem for us, but became bigger in solving a problem for them as well. And it's that part of the relationship, I think, that's pretty important. So
and again, we appreciate you sort of keeping us involved in those things, and it improves our network. The more products and other vendors out there that can integrate with iManage, the better for us.
Yep.
So we're always up for the challenge with that kind of thing, for sure. Moving on to sort of broadly, is there any sort of emerging technologies that you're looking at or that you're concerned about that's going to impact your business?
I think that the piece that we're probably looking at the moment is, there's probably a couple of pieces. I think the data analytics piece is going to start to play a pretty big role in the audit profession, and our ability to really interrogate data sets and that for our clients is going to be pretty key. And at the moment, it's kind of getting the balance right of being able to do it and the commerciality of it. So definitely that's something that as a business we need to be approaching and we need to be more mindful of. I can certainly see AI starting to take a role in our business. A lot of what we do, we kind of do month in, month out. We're dealing with the same clients and things like that. So I can see us using some of those technologies to pre-fill some of what we do, or to sort of get a step ahead of what we do. So I think those will be pretty useful to us. There's probably not really any technologies I'm concerned about at the moment. I think the accounting profession's always going to have a role. It's probably going to change and have to adapt, but I kind of feel like as long as we keep working as we've kind of been working, we can probably at least stay close to the head of that and be ready to deal with anything that might come along. So.
Okay, all right. Another sort of completely weird question, but with remote working, analytics, the stuff that some of our customers are looking at and across the board technology-wise is things like automation with robots and web chats where your customers can just go to your web page and just start talking to a web chat, get some level of advice via the knowledge and information that's stored in your systems. To me that's really exciting, but also really scary to be able to turn it into something that if someone does it before you, what does that mean? Is that anything that's come up?
Certainly we're using robotics to fill in some of the gaps, and certainly contemplating and early stages of chatbots and the like internally to be a FAQ kind of scenario, and even just for help desk on general IT queries and the like. So sort of dipping our toe in the water a little bit there. Okay. I think at the end of the day we touched on why our relationship's important, and it's that being able to call you and throw something at you and give you some thinking time and come back with a response. I think that's why potentially the chatbots will only go so far. I think at the end of the day, most clients in a professional services capacity want to actually talk to somebody and want to be able to explain their circumstances and all that goes hand in hand. So I think there's always going to be a role for accountants. It's just that's potentially going to have to change over time. The compliance piece and some of that may diminish, but I think that just kind of frees us up to focus on more value add and how we can actually help clients build their businesses and grow their business, sell their business, whatever it happens to be. So
fantastic.
It's like anything. I think we've got to keep an eye on it, but I do think there's a reason why clients come to us in the first place, and we've just got to make sure we focus on doing that as best as we possibly can.
No, that's good info. It's interesting. You worry about these things coming in and just completely changing your industry, and all of a sudden, what you've been doing for the last 100 odd years is
out the door.
But it's good that you've considered it. You've looked at how these technologies work, and they're not an imminent threat to the organisation.
I think there's definitely opportunities, and there's opportunities to use technology to service clients better. There's probably opportunities to use technology to make sure our advice is as best as it possibly can be and things like that. So we'll certainly explore it from that angle. But I kind of feel like, for me at least, clients want that more personal experience, especially when it's that more complicated work that we're doing, as opposed to maybe just completing accounts and the like. So.
Okay. So with talking about what customers want,
Yep.
We've also seen trends where clients of especially accountancies want some assurances about their the data
Yep.
integrity. They want certifications around SOC 2 and ISO
Yep.
compliance with what you're doing. How's that impacting Pitcher Partners?
It's probably impacting us from a couple of ways. We're certainly being a lot more diligent in the vendors we deal with, and asking a lot more questions of them, and really making sure they're compliant to start with. I think it's quite easy for us to assume that, well, they're in IT, they must know what they're doing. So it's certainly put the pressure on us to do that. It's an interesting one. I mean, we've with the size of practice and stuff, we've got cyber insurance. So getting cyber insurance is getting harder and harder without some of that certification in place. So we spend a reasonable amount of our budget on being as secure as we possibly can, and we will look at getting some of that certification simply to be able to tick some of those boxes and make life easier. So it's certainly something I'm very conscious of. We're seeing a lot more requests for information before we even start talking to clients. So it's certainly becoming a bigger part of our compliance world. And equally, it's an interesting one because we now have to spend a lot more time training our people on what we're signing up for, what we've agreed to as part of the engagement and things like that, just to make sure that we don't inadvertently do something that's kind of outside of the scope of the work we wanted to do.
And you're finding from that area, especially with things like engagement letters, engagement agreements with each individual client, is there a trend, or are they individual, each client wanting something very specific depending on what industry they're in, or?
For the most part, I mean, I think the engagement process is one area where we can get some huge benefits out of automation. I think for us, and I think for a lot of practices of our size, you want some level of consistency in what you're doing there. So I want to know the engagement letter you've got is the same as the engagement letter somebody else has got from managing the risk piece. But nevertheless, some clients will like specific pieces in there or specific pieces out of there. And we need to know what we've done and the changes that we've made there. We deal with some European-based clients where the requirements under a data breach are very significantly different in Europe to what they are here. So we've got to be mindful of that should we have a situation occur, to be on the front foot and actually dealing with it. So wherever we're kind of doing stuff more bespoke, then we also need the systems to make sure we're aware of what we've done and committed to.
Again, just interesting conversation, but some of the iManage platforms, like their extract tool, does things like finds obligations within contracts and calls them out and then categorises them for you. So is that sort of the sort of analytics that would internally assist you rather than
Look, definitely I can see we're going to get to that piece where we're going to need to be looking at those kind of things, and also precursors of content going out the door, to be honest with you, and seeing what people are saying and what's coming back in. So all of that stuff is very much front of mind at the moment. If the data breach changes that are happening in Europe sort of happen here, do we need to be redacting information and those kind of things? So we've got one eye on it, I guess, as much as you possibly can.
It's a very interesting field, and there was a big push, and I thought it was all going to explode into this big thing, but it's kind of been a bit slower than we thought. Yeah, I mean,
our CRM tool is a good example where the developer's UK based, so there's lots of tools in there to deal with their kind of notification requirements, which thankfully haven't materialised here, but it was certainly something that when we were looking at it, it was good to know we were on the front foot and could deal with that if we needed to. So,
And again, if this is, I guess, commercially confidential information, you don't have to answer, but some of our customers are looking at moving to cloud platforms specifically so that they can ensure that their data's behind SOC 2 compliance and ISO compliance and all that sort of stuff. Where does Pitcher Partners fit in that area?
So we've had a pretty strong relationship for probably similar period to working with you guys with an external vendor that we use, and we host all of our data primarily on their infrastructure.
Okay.
For that very reason. We know the security that's built into the infrastructure. We know the people that are looking after it. We know where it sits at any point in time. So we are very conscious of doing that. And as I said, we put a fair amount of rigour on looking at new vendors now. And if they're not up to scratch, we just don't deal with them. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
The other area we've seen it is, I mentioned it right at the beginning, we were doing sort of virtual secondees and using offshoring. And we found throughout COVID that a lot of kind of offshore providers popped up that just didn't have the infrastructure there to support working on our data in another country. So it's another area where we're very focused on making sure that those providers can also give us the data security we need as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And again, this is the last question I'll ask in this area, but so, you guys are obviously using an external data centre.
Yep.
It's kind of like infrastructure as a service a little bit,
yep.
I guess. Where is the Pitcher Partners Sydney organisation in the journey towards more cloud, SaaS services?
Look, we look at everything on its merits at the end of the day, and it's kind of all comes down to that fit for purpose piece as well. Okay. If the vendor is the right vendor, if the application is the right application, and they can support it in that environment, then we'll certainly look to move to that.
Okay.
That the not needing to do maintenance and those kind of things on it is a pretty big tick in the box, and it lets our internal guys spend more time on looking after our staff and the like. So we kind of weigh everything up on its merits, and we'll go with the right application and the right vendor and whatever works for them in terms of how we get it provided. So.
Okay, that's good. I was just out of interest because you've got a lot of stuff sort of in-house,
yep.
which is great, and it's secured properly. Just sort of wondering if there was a general sort of theme there as far as a reluctance from the partnership so far to look at cloud.
Yeah, look, it's probably more of a reluctance from my end, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And it comes down to maybe being let down by one or two vendors in the past around their security regimes and the like. Whilst we do have an in-house team, a lot of the management is done by the third party we use. So you're exactly right. It's infrastructure as a service and solutions as a service kind of scenario. So, but over time that will change and that will diminish, and we'll move to sort of more vendor-centric and the like. To be fair. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate your time spending this with us. Over the years, you've been very patient with us. You've worked with us very closely in some really challenging projects and challenging times. But can you give us a hard word on any good or bad experiences with OIA over the last 14 years?
Look, I think there's been plenty of good experiences. The odd bad experience, but the way that's been dealt with has always been good. Mm. I think that the overarching thing for me is the strength of the relationship there. That I know I can just pick up the phone, be brutally honest, and know it's taken the right way and will be dealt with the right way. So I think, as I said, there's definitely been a lot more good experiences. I think there's been some great projects with some really good outcomes, and that continues. I think you're still doing some work for us, or have just finished some work for us. So look, it continues even 14 years in. So
yeah, definitely. So as we discussed a bit earlier, we're looking at rebranding now for our 30th anniversary. Mm-hmm. It'll be our 31st year this year, but we just took a bit of time getting the logo right. So we've been playing around with this one.
Yep.
We'll put it up on the screen so you can see it as well.
Yep.
Maybe this will be part of our new branding launch. But the general picture of this was to freshen things up.
Yep.
We wanted to move away from the 1990s green, and have a logo that represented both. The two sides of our business, which is our technical services and our information management and digital transformation services, but also the partnership that we have with our customers, and that's where those two circles sort of joining together comes in. So I don't know if you've got any feedback or thoughts.
I'm definitely not the marketing guy, but yeah, look, I think, when I looked at it, I kind of saw those two circles as definitely the coming together, the relationship piece. So look, I think it works, and it certainly looks more current than the old one, let's say. So
no need to be nasty. Very good.
No, looks good.
All right. Well, Adam, thanks very much for your time today. It's been fantastic spending some time discussing some memories and stuff with you, and hopefully we can come back in another 10 or 15
Sounds
years
good,
and
doesn't it?
see where Pitcher Partners is at there.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
And the new microbrewery.
Indeed, yeah. Well, maybe we can do the next one at the brewery. That might be better
to that.
than sitting here. So.
Fantastic. All right, thanks, Adam.
No worries.